76% of married couples fight about money. In fact, you might be on the internet right now looking for potential solutions for you and your spouse or significant other. That's what my wife and I fought about all the time until about a year and a half ago when we joined a small group focused on helping us understand and eventually achieve financial independence. We've experienced the most amazing transformation in our own finances, in our understanding of financial principles, that we're now on the same page most of the time when it comes to financial decisions in our household. These financial principles can be understood and applied by anyone in any situation. The concept starts with the idea of gamifying your finances, setting up the board, and having fun playing while eventually reaching financial independence. The kind of freedom that would let you walk away from any kind of work obligations and live comfortably for the rest of your life. My name is James Hammer, and I'm an award-winning educator, director, and content creator, and I'm here to share what I've learned to help you and your partner get on the same page and both be successful in your journey toward financial independence. Since the fall of 2022, my wife and I have joined with a handful of others in a small group led by finance expert Steve Campbell. Steve and his wife Jen have opened their home almost every Friday night and have passionately and painstakingly taken our group of financial misfits, bonded together by their desire and willingness to improve their understanding of financial best practices, to not only eliminate debt, but to take tangible, actionable steps toward building wealth. Wealth that will eventually give you the freedom to walk away from traditional income-earning employment into the world of financial freedom. You're being invited to join us for a series of conversations recorded in the home where we meet and spread out into digestible broadcasts both on YouTube and where you stream your podcasts that explore not only the broad range of financial concepts like debt reduction, wealth building strategies, retirement accounts, and Social Security benefits, but time or money-saving hacks and the options for creating multiple streams of income that don't require your full-time presence. Everybody can play the game, everybody can win the game. Welcome to the Game of Fi, because money shouldn't be such a mystery. This is James Hammer, first episode of Game of Fi, and we're sitting here with Jen and Steve Campbell. Welcome to both of you. It's kind of funny having this conversation because I've been hanging out with you all for a year and a half doing all this, and we're just now starting to talk about it and explore sort of the impact that this has had not only on my life and my wife's life, but also the lives of everyone else that's been participating. So really, if this will be our first episode, I think the idea is, for us to maybe talk about why it's important that we talk about these things. I know that when I first encountered you all a year and a half ago, I was incredibly illiterate when it came to finances. Just being completely transparent. I had literally no idea how most of that stuff worked. And getting in with this group and exploring these ideas with you and the other members of the group has been really just an amazing experience. And so what I want to ask you is let's go way back before the group started, when you were first thinking about what is it that we're going to create with this group? What are we wanting to accomplish with this group? What was your thought process? I mean, where did the idea come from? What led you to the point where you were like, okay, yeah, we want to do this at the church. We want to try to get a small group together and just kind of share, if you would, both of you, just share that journey with us. How did that come about?
Yeah, Jim, great question. I hope you don't mind me. I've known you for a while now, so I know you as Jim, not James.
Oh, and absolutely. I use James professionally, but Jim is A-okay. It's good stuff.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Jim. First, I want to say I'm thrilled to actually get this thing kicked off. You know, we've been talking about this for quite some time now, and we're finally kicking this off. I think it's extremely important talking about finances. I know it's a taboo subject for a lot of people. I get that. But the truth of the matter is, it is a topic that should be discussed. And unfortunately, it's just not discussed a whole lot. I'll answer your question, but it all comes down to literacy, like you had brought up. You came into the group about a year and a half ago, acknowledged that you weren't extremely literate in finances. But let me answer your question in a different way. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to have to hang with me here, Jim.
Okay, no problem. Improvisation is my gift. Okay, here we go.
There you go, right? So let me ask you this. What is a carpenter square? If I gave you a carpenter square, what would that do for you?
Right, absolutely. I would use that carpenter square to measure straight cuts in the wood that I was using, and to use it, it was a tool. It's a tool that I use, I guess, would be in stage construction and things like that, yeah.
Okay, so you knew what it was. How did you know that?
My experience with it.
You just had experience.
Yeah.
Did you have any official training in it?
No.
No, none. Just kind of experimenting with it. You got to learn how to use it. Now you're pretty proficient with it.
Right. My degree was in education, and nowhere in education is it said you have to use a carpenter square.
So you're going to prove my point here in a minute. But you didn't have any official training on it and took some experimentation to actually get used to it.
Right.
It's a tool.
Yes.
In and of itself, a carpenter square is nothing more than a tool. You can't do a whole lot with it by itself.
Right.
You have to use it in conjunction with something else to make something bigger than itself.
Right.
Bigger than the tool. Maybe you're going to make a bookshelf, right? Or maybe you're going to make a house.
Yeah.
But
done the bookshelf, not the house.
Not the house, right? But in the end, the tool itself is nothing more than something that is being used to make something bigger than itself.
Right. It's a resource that makes sense in the circumstances, in the context of what you're working on.
Absolutely. If you use the tool, if you use that carpenter square the wrong way, is it going to achieve its purpose?
Absolutely not.
Probably not,
No.
right? In fact, you could probably do more damage to the wood and lose product over and over again.
Right.
And eventually,
Wonder, what am I doing wrong?
Right. It takes a lot of experimenting to get to it perfectly. Money is the same thing. That's the way we view money, is that it is just a tool. That's all it is. And there are two ways to learn about tools, including money. Number one, you have an education, a formal education in it. You're sitting in school and you have classes on it, right? Or you go to carpenter school and you learn how to use all their tools. But when it comes to money, we don't really have two options. That first one being the training, the second one being the experimenting with it. We have to rely on the experimenting when it comes to money. You kind of learned your expertise with that tool, the carpenter tool, through experimenting. Well, when it comes to financing, we don't get to choose, for the most part, how am I going to learn about money, how to use this tool. Money in and of itself, like that carpenter tool, is really just paper and coins. In fact, it's not paper, it's actually cloth, believe it or not.
Right.
75% cotton, 25% linen, but we'll call it paper. It's just paper and coins. You could stack it, coins, you could stack money. If you're the Donner Party, you could burn it and get warmth maybe.
Right.
I've seen
Cook
people
dinner.
make origami figures, with it, but in and of itself, it really doesn't do much.
Right.
But like the carpenter tool, you can use it to create something much bigger than itself. And that's what we need to be able to use money for, is a tool.
Right.
That's it. It's just a tool.
And I think it's a fascinating part of the process that if you don't understand that, if you have a very emotional relationship with money, like I probably did before coming to the group, and like my wife definitely did. I mean, for her, money is very much security, and when that money drops below a certain level, that increases her tension, that increases her fear, because to her that means things are unsafe. And so, having a lot of emotional attachment to money kind of makes it really difficult to work with it sometimes, because you're much more like kind of freaked out about it than you really probably should be. And that's where I think the more you know, the more capable you are of accomplishing intelligent things with what you do know.
Yeah, Jen, I'd like to ask you, I know that we have different approaches with money. Clearly, I'm more analytical, less emotional. You are analytical, certainly, but you have a little bit more emotional connection with money than I currently do, and have had for quite some time. Explain what is that feeling like for you as far as your connection with money?
Like my emotional connection?
Yeah, what is it? What does money do for you? What is it that you rely on money for?
So probably similar to what your wife experiences. I mean, it is a safety factor. Makes you feel less anxious when you have money in the bank versus getting close to $0, which I have had before in the past.
Yeah.
Especially like when you're a college student or just learning about how money works. I don't really have bills and stuff yet, but then when you do start having bills and then learning how that works, if you have any overdrafts, learning that experience and all the emotions that comes with that, and the panic that can come. Yeah, certainly having money in the bank makes a really big difference in your emotions as far as anxiety goes. And I know a lot of women are more like that because we are usually the ones that built the nest, built the home. And I think, I was looking at an article this morning looking at, as far as families go, that women are the one who are, it's like over 60% are really managing the budget. Whether they have an actual budget in place or not, women are usually the ones that are spending and managing the household when it comes to that.
And I know that they say something like 76% of all arguments in marriage are finance related, if you think about it. And if you're not on the same page financially with things, that definitely lends to a lot of misunderstanding, miscommunication. I mean, I know for us that joining the group really put Christy and I on the same page, ultimately, financially. And that has made a huge difference in our relationship, because honestly, the only thing we really ever fought about really that much was money. And you take away 75% of our issues. Thank you. And that worked out really, really well. So we haven't, in the last year and a half, we really haven't argued that much about finances because we're finally on the same page. And finally seeing things the same. So that movement toward financial literacy has been a big, big step for us. To continue with the question, kind of how did that then shape your decision in wanting to create the group and wanting to share that expertise that you have with other people to help them with their finances?
Yeah, so Jim, it wasn't always a desire of mine to get into finance. Believe it or not. In fact, I have probably made nearly every mistake somebody could make when it comes to finance. First of all, I grew up without money. I mean, really, no money at all. When we say we're poor, that would be an understatement. My brother and I would share a bathroom in a motel. And when I say we shared a bathroom, I didn't mean we take turns using the bathroom and we shared the bathtub and things like that. We slept in the bathroom. That was our room.
Wow.
And we shared the bathtub. One night he gets to sleep in it and I had the floor. The next night I got to sleep in it and he had the floor. And that was for 6 of us.
Wow.
6 of us in that no room, just a living room and a kitchen and a bathroom, motel room.
Right.
And so we really had no money. We moved all the time. I assume now when I look back at it, it was because we just didn't pay the rent, I'm guessing.
Right.
Our electricity, I thought having no lights was just part of life. It was just the lights are broken and it haven't been fixed yet. Obviously, it didn't take long as I was growing up to realize that we probably didn't pay the electric bill
Right.
also. So as far as my knowledge on money, all I knew about money was we didn't have it.
Yeah.
And we would have to make do, and that was it. So money wasn't something that I quickly learned about in depth. It was just something that I assumed a lot of people just don't have.
Right.
But then I joined the Army, and it was in the Army around 1997, in fact, and I was holding a job as what's called a protective service agent. That's the Army's version of Secret Service.
Okay.
And I was assigned a principal of a flag officer, and in the Army, Air Force, Marines, that's a general officer. In the Navy, it's an admiral. But I had an admiral that was my principal, and my job is to sit and wait and wait and wait, and then when he wants to go somewhere, I get to go with him, right? I get to go with him and provide that protection. Well, we're waiting in his office. He's in meetings, and I'm sitting out in the lobby just waiting for him. And I've got nothing to do, so I pick up a magazine. It's a finance magazine. I don't remember. I think it was Money Magazine, and on the cover had something to do with the top mutual funds of 1996 or maybe the first half of 1997 or something to that. I may as well have been reading a book in a totally different language, because if it didn't have anything to do with sports, then I wouldn't know anything about it. But I had nothing else to do, so I flipped through the pages, and before I knew it, I heard a sound from the general's or from the admiral's voice, "Campbell, come here." And I thought, boy, I'm in trouble. I'm supposed to be ready when he walks out that door. I wasn't ready. He took me to a computer, sat me down, punched in a URL, an address, fool.com. And he said, read those 13 steps and remember me when you make your first million.
And that was the Motley Fool that he turned you on to, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was the Motley Fool.
I see those advertisements everywhere for Motley Fool.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Aside from that, I knew nothing about finances other than I want more money.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
I was I was a specialist in the Army, right? Or maybe I'd become sergeant by now. I don't know. But I just know I didn't make a lot of money.
Right.
And so I read that, and that was the beginning of a totally different lifestyle for me. I was hooked on finance. When I read those 13 steps, I knew at this point I could learn about this subject that nobody wants to talk about and nobody wants to educate me on. Mm-hmm. But I could learn about it myself, and I couldn't get enough. Whether it was online or whether it was buying books or reading magazines, I couldn't get enough.
Right.
And from that point on, I became that guy. The guy that everybody would ask questions about when it came to finances in the unit, because I just absorbed all that information. Some people have the ability to absorb technology tricks and how to get the latest, like your setup here. I'm sitting here watching you set this thing up, and I'm like, I could never do that. But you have that gift. You're able to do that.
Right.
For me, it was finances, and I became that guy.
Yep.
And I quickly realized that I could absorb that information a lot quicker than a lot of people. I didn't view money as something that was, too complicated. Mm-hmm. It just seemed fairly easy to understand all those finance concepts and those investing concepts.
Yeah.
And so when I got out of the Army, I figured I got to keep being that guy. And the only place I could be that guy on a regular basis was in church. I wanted to be on the finance committee. I wanted to create a small group. I wanted to talk finance and help people. But more than just the ability to comprehend it, I quickly learned that I also had the ability to relay that information in such a way that people who previously couldn't understand certain concepts could quickly pick up on it.
Well, and that's what resonated so much with me. Like I mentioned the other night, just Friday night when we were here in group, it just dawned on me and clicked that you talk about finances the same way that I talk about the creative process. We both are very knowledgeable about those things and very passionate about them. And I think what connects me so much to the understanding of what you're saying is that the language you're speaking that I understand is passion. And that's why I think what you explain and when you talk about these things, that's why I think it resonates so clearly with me, because my brain goes, look, no matter what it is, this man is talking with a sense of passion, and you should pay attention and really try to understand, because I understand the power of that passion and the power of being passionate about a particular topic and wanting to share it and wanting to help people understand it and help people tune in to principles that are right around them all the time, but nobody maybe necessarily taught them those things. I know that my own experience in financial education, my mom was very protective of me in the sense that I really didn't handle my own finances for a really long time. Even as a young adult, my mom was so concerned that I would go off the rails, and she was right. But she was so concerned that I would go off the rails that she was very sort of micromanaging about my money and my finances. So I did not spend a tremendous amount of time learning about that whole process and about the principles that you're talking about and that you've been talking about in this group. And so I think that for us really exploring this in this broadcast, I think the key there is really letting people know that, hey, that's not uncommon. It's not uncommon that you don't get that kind of literacy, that kind of education about finances when you're young. It's not uncommon, because the reality is your parents are surviving too. They're trying to survive. They're trying to, and maybe no one taught them. Right. And so you look back at this legacy of the financial illiteracy that comes down just generation after generation after generation. And my own kids were destined for that reality as well, because when we were younger, we struggled. We struggled to make ends meet. I had 5 or 6 different jobs. I mean, I taught, but teaching didn't pay all the bills, and so I had to do other things as well. And so, kind of picking yourself up, by the proverbial bootstraps sort of all along the way. But I know that if someone had come along to in my life earlier that had spoke about the principles in the way that you do, I know that would have been transformative at that point in my life as well, right, with everything else that was going on. I wish that you'd come along sooner, but we all know that there's a plan, and that sometimes, circumstantially, you're not ready for revelations and experiences until you actually are. And so coming to you all and being a part of this group when we did was actually perfect for us, because it really helped our relationship and got us to a much better place where maybe any time in the last 10 years that same thing would have happened, but I feel like now my wife and I are in a really, really good place, and just having this extra sort of unity around the idea of money and how we handle finances and things like that. That's been really, really beneficial. So just having a little more knowledge and having a little more experience with it has just been a huge benefit for us. I just can't even explain how much I've grown in the last year and a half, learning these principles from you and being part of this group and everybody that's in this group that we're in. It's very exciting. And I have to say to the listener and to the person watching, you're missing out, because it's really an awesome group. Just saying.
Well, we're hoping to open it up
yes.
a lot more.
We want to bring the group to you at some point, wherever you may be. That's really the desire ultimately, is to have groups like this popping up all over the country where people are really, really learning about their finances in a very practical way, because I think that's one of the things you bring to the table, is a real practical understanding of your finances, not just sort of a kind of cosmic, ethereal sort of, oh yes, this is money and this is how it works in the universe, but like sticks and stones, this is how you build stuff,
Yeah.
This is how you build wealth, this is how you set up the game board for finances.
That's all for part 1 of our conversation with financial expert Steve Campbell and his wife Jen. But the conversation is far from over. Please join us in part 2, available now, where we'll dig a little deeper into the realities of the importance of financial literacy as Steve reveals more about what led him to share his knowledge and why he gets so excited about seeing people get out of debt. All next time on Game of 5.